I'd love to start this off with you, Kate, by connecting to one another, connecting to the energy that's present, connecting to our hearts, and taking a few deep breaths together just to anchor in. So I'll invite you to keep your eyes open or closed. I'm going to close my eyes and just tune into what wants to come through in this space and connecting to my heart, to yours, to your energy field, and just calling in any beautiful energy and presence that is supportive and nurturing. The intention here is to bring our energies forth to the collective, to inspire, to enhance, to amplify, to enlighten, to awaken, or whatever it is that wants to come through. And just saying a little prayer of gratitude for this moment, for this breath, for this time, and to have you here. I'm so grateful.
Yeah,
It has
thank you.
been, you're so welcome. Thank you. It has been a long time in the making that we've been dancing around each other and hanging out online and finally getting to have you here and extract your beauty and your wisdom and your genius and get to share that with my network and yours as well. And hopefully so many others that are ready for the potency of your message and your medicine. I'm so grateful to have you here.
Oh, wow. I'm so grateful to be here. And finally, the stars aligned that we could be in connection in this way. So thank you for having me, Samantha.
My pleasure. How wild is it that we're both in Canada right now? Living in Canada. When when we first met during the pandemic and the days were wild and the times were crazy, you were in Norway. I think I was living in Spain at the time when we first connected. And
Mhm.
how wild is it that we're both in Canada now? Something that we didn't expect, hey?
Totally did not expect.
Yeah.
It was like a coming home though for you too. I mean, both
Yeah.
of us have roots here in different ways.
We do. And a lot more people now are connecting with me in Canada. And so while this podcast is nothing to do about Canada, we're going to go so deep into different directions. I'd love for you to talk about that coming home, because this is a theme that is really present, being called home, and that looks different for different people. But I'd love for you to share on that because I know that's
Hmm.
a little seed of something so much greater. So what do you mean about coming home?
Mm. I don't know, but maybe you have a similar experience where there's this longing and searching for many, many years and lots of traveling and finding different soul homes and being called here and called there, seeking something that feels really safe, truly. And safety meaning inside. And I don't know if it's so much a place of where I've landed, but where I've landed inside of myself
Mm.
and that the timing of landing inside of myself coincided with me moving back to Canada after 13 years away from what was my birth home.
Mm.
And so I suppose coming home is really about coming to a place of where you can feel rooted and it doesn't need to be physical. But that feels like the most resonant way to put it.
I fully understand, and it's inner stand as well. It's so funny that for you it's 13 years. I think it's exactly 13 years as well for me that I had been nomadic and traveling the world and endlessly seeking without knowing I was seeking. There was something that I was looking for, that I was seeking, that I was searching. That I felt. Uh, I thought it was this travel itch, but there was really a longing inside of me. And I remember, I'll just share this because this will make sense with you and with the people who listen to us. I was staying with a girlfriend in Hawaii, and she's a beautiful home right on the ocean. I was swimming in the ocean in her backyard, and this massive sea turtle pops its head up, and it's massive, giant, this majestic beast of a turtle, beautiful, pops its head up and is just staring at me. And the water's glistening, the sun is shining. I'm all by myself. And I had just had a really hard day and a really hard week. I was very confused, a lot going on. And I'm there with this sea turtle, and it just stares at me in the eyes. And this sounds all the woo, but it is what it is. I swear to you, it telepathically sent me a message. And I know you get this, but other people are like, Sam, you're nuts. But, anyways, telepathically sent me a message just saying, like, home is where your body is, like the shell, your shell of a body, that is where your home is. And the turtle's journey of returning home in these cycles. and it hit my heart and I burst into tears
Oh,
and then it just dunked its head under and swam off. And I remember feeling it for the first time ever, like, I am where my home is. And
yeah.
it shifted so much for me.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I know.
To
I
have
just
that
cried, cried with the
experience.
cradle. Like, is this real?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah,
I feel like those types of synchronicities really happen when we're on the pathway home.
yeah.
When we're on the path, we're always given these reminders, these messages, these symbols and signs. You're doing okay. You're on your way. I think it's so beautiful.
And it really is that tuning in and being open and seeking. Instead of seeking the answers outside, when we switch to seeking the answers inside of like, what is it for me? And we actually open our eyes and our ears and our senses to what nature, what the universe is showing us, there's so much magic there. So speaking of magic, you are what captivated me about you. I don't know how we found each other. I don't even remember, but I remember seeing your videos and hearing your voice and experiencing you. And I remember thinking, oh, this is a magical being, a whimsical, wonderful, magical human being. Is just somebody I need to be connected with. And so I won't even do you justice by explaining what you do. I'd love for you to share what is your purpose here? What are you here for?
Oof. So when you asked me to come on this podcast, I immediately, well, obviously it was a yes because of who you are. But when you told me what the podcast was called and sovereignty being the core of it, my work, its why, is in service to sovereignty. That is what I'm here to do. And I do that work through offerings of remembrance of what power resides within the sacred feminine. And that's not in competition with or different from the masculine, but rather a remembrance of the feminine to raise up the consciousness and remembrance of what it means to be in full power and sovereign in our feminine, to meet the masculine in this unification. So that is my work, and it happens in many different ways through ceremony, ritual, gatherings, and courses and trainings. It's all really around this idea of creating sovereignty.
Mm, I want to get so deep into all of the granulars of that. And before I do that, I want to ask you about your path. Was this always something you had? Was this a gift of yours from childhood? What led you to this sacred work?
I think many of us that are probably listening here, or even you and I, had this when we were young. And there's often this part of us that is initially this way, and then there's a departure from it, a separation from the magic, and then there's a reconnection with it. And in many ways, that mirrors what it is to have a rite of passage. There's a separation and then a return. And so, as a young girl, I was a really mystical kid. I was really into the occult and the great mysteries. And then there was a separation because I grew up in a Christian household. It wasn't, looked well upon to delve into the mysteries from the perspective of God within and what is on the other side and speaking with spirits and all this type. So there was a separation for some years. And in my early 20s, I started finding my way back into what I refer to as the path of the priestess. But, that can look very different for many people and has many different names, labels, and titles. And so that path was really about finding a reconnection point, which for me occurred by having some really strong visions come through and then not being able to avoid them any longer.
Yeah. So a piece of my journey, and I'm glad you mentioned this, and I want to touch on this. Very much raised in a Christian-ish household and departed from that, went into every kind of agnostic and atheist and spiritual and new age and occultist, and then came studied Buddhism and Hinduism and Ayurveda and all of the, read all the sacred texts and have had a big return back to Christianity in a different way than was taught to me and not in the dogmatic and the restrictive and the heavily contorted corrupted version, but the true path of Jesus's teaching and the Divine Mother and Mary Magdalene And I know a lot of the people that listen to me are on that Christian journey, and maybe even some of them have already turned this podcast off when they heard the word occult, right? Because there's a huge there are many different ways to engage with the cult or to see witchcraft or to see priestess energy or to see, and so I wanna name that right away and go into that and ask you what do you think about that? Like, does a cult what does a cult mean for you?
Mhm.
Is it witchcraftery? Is it opposite to this Christianity? Are you calling in, dark spirits to aid in your work? Like, let's go right into that conversation to start.
I love this because there's always this fear that comes with the dark and the shadow. So I want to start there. The dark and the shadow is the polarity that exists everywhere, but it's not evil. The dark and the shadow is where there is a primordial void of creation. It's where everything comes from. It's where we birth from. It's where babies come from. It's where the universe comes from. It's all one. And when we separate ourselves from the shadowy aspects or the unseen aspects, the lunar aspects, we lose a big part of our wholeness because then we shy away from our own shadow, our own dark, our own inner void where creation comes from. And so the occult is really just the unseen, that which we don't necessarily see in this dimension. And when I look to what I'm doing now, no, it's not conjuring up any dark spirits or connecting with forces that are of ill intent, but rather it is opening to what is the feminine side of this path. And when we look towards the Gnostic Christianity, which is really what you're speaking of with the path of Magdalene and looking into the Gospels of Thomas and Philip and the Nag Hammadi scrolls and everything that comes with that, Thunder Perfect Mind, we, Acts of Paul and Tekla, we really see that there's another aspect that was removed. And so when I speak to the feminine side, it's really about what is it to hold sovereignty from the perspective of the feminine, which was really extracted from Christianity from the get go.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very fun and interesting razor edge journey that I'm personally on, reconnecting with Christianity and Christ consciousness, and reading the Bible and extracting the wisdom and the beauty from the Bible, and also seeing the contortion and and the non useful shadow, the corruption of it, and realizing what was written by man for man, and man not meaning human, but man for man, through the politics and the control, and recognizing the books of Thomas and Mary that were excluded, the Nag Hammadi, the different, everything that you had mentioned, and realizing that I'm going to lose a lot of Christians already, but what I have found was that the Bible is half truths,
Mhm.
and it's keeping humanity in a distorted, incomplete reality as well by being preached as the truth, like the living word of God. And we have to realize that it cannot be the living word of God, as it's so incomplete and written by humans. And so, this is something I would love for Christians, because I identify with a Christian and the path of Christ, but to be open to the Gnostic realms, meaning the inner wisdom and the feminine that was so
Mhm.
lacking. And as we talked about right before jumping on, her story, the
Yeah.
feminine line. And I'm on a tangent, but I'm going to go with it. Even when I was researching about the top prayer, right? Our Father who art in heaven. When we go to the Hebrew wording, the true meaning, and I don't read Hebrew, so I can't confirm or deny this, but everything I've researched was that the word was actually not the father. It's a word that means the father, mother, womb. It was a word that entails the those three different entities as one, meaning the creator, but we utilize the words as the father, which is only signifying the masculine.
Yeah.
And so even in the way that we relate, even the calling him Jesus, it's not even his real name. All of these distortions, and within those distortions, when we're looking to them for absolute truth and guidance, no wonder humanity is still not sovereign, because of the lack of the entirety and the dissonance and the distortion.
Mm. You speak to a lot of truths here. And when we look to the verbiage and the distortion, when we think about even the word Lord within the Bible, Lord was used as a feudal term for the ruler, the masculine ruler of land. And before the Christian Bible, Lord didn't exist.
Yeah.
That was something that was brought in to bring in this hierarchy. Whereas when we look towards the stories within Magdalene, it, God was within the new.
Yeah.
And there's that takes us back to the sovereignty of remembering that we can have that direct connection with God, Goddess, Creator, Spirit, however we name.
Mm.
And that's incredible. That's such a gift.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. This is something I didn't know we were going to take this path, and I'm so excited we're on it. We're on a divine detour that's going to be perfect. And everyone listening, we're getting back there. We're going to go into some theology here because I think it's important. Even in the most quoted, one of the most quoted parts of the Bible, and I even just saw it pop up today, is where it says, Jesus says, "You will only know God through me. I am the way." People misunderstand that by thinking it means the man Jesus. Jesus is the only way, but what I have understood it to be was he is identifying. He is the identifier of the way, meaning living through love,
Mm.
forgiveness, truth, in divine service. He is pointing, he is the archetype of the way, pointing to the path and the blueprint, saying, like, I represent the way. But we, in our little mortal minds, or most people, because of the conditioning and the teachings, are like, no, it means that just him as the being is the way, and no other way can be the way. But that it's so challenging to to just see through that and see how it really harms people and keeps us from our sovereignty. So with that being said, I would love for you to go into more of what is the essence and the meaning of the divine feminine way of sovereignty.
Mm. With this, we need to go far back into time before the Abrahamic religions, where we see some of the most oldest worshipped deities was the Great Mother. And we see this in archaeological evidence. Maria Gimbutas, who was an incredible archaeologist, showed that these divine feminine figures were what were being uprooted when they were excavating these sites and these sacred temples. And what was shown was that the feminine was revered for her creation power, her generative power. And over time, we saw this removed. But when we go back into the stories of pre Christian times, we can find stories of sovereignty. When we look to the myth of Inanna, she who sovereignly chose to descend down seven gates to meet her sister Ereshkigal, and then sovereignly came back after dying. We have this resurrection myth of the divine feminine right there. She died for 3 days. Who else died for 3 days? Jesus. Who else goes away for 3 days? The moon goes into the dark. And so we have these sovereignty myths shown in the feminine, mirrored in the masculine today. And when we go back into the myths of the divine feminine, we can remember what it is to have sovereign stories because we don't have them in modern day. There's not many, anyways.
Yeah.
When we look to the Greek goddess Hera, she went to the spring to bathe, to reclaim her virginity every year, sovereignly. And virginity, of course, meaning sovereign unto herself, owned by no one.
Yeah.
And so I love to look at the mythos of ancient times to remember that the feminine was very, very valued and
Mm.
seen as powerful and was also holding a society, a matriarchal society. Not to say that we want to go back to matriarchy. That's not what I'm speaking to, but that there was another way. And the archaeological evidence shows that these societies were peaceful. There was weapons found in any burial mounds. There was no sign of fortified walls, that these people were living very peacefully for thousands and thousands of years. So as we get closer towards Christianity, we start to see other sovereignty myths, but they're flipped to make the feminine evil. When we see Eve in the Garden of Eden choosing to eat the apple of wisdom, tempting the divine masculine. What we're really being shown is someone choosing wisdom, someone choosing sovereignty, and then it being flipped in the story of this is evil and this is her fault that it's been brought down. And the sovereignty of Lilith, too. She
Mm.
who would not submit. Oh, that was condemned as well for many, many, many moons. And so there's all these mythos and stories we can look to reframe and understand what it is to be the sovereign feminine.
Isn't it wild? Isn't it wild that so many people, billion, maybe not billions, but millions and millions and millions of people are educated that the entire world is sinful because of one woman? Because the origin of human sin is from a woman manipulating and seducing her man into doing this forbidden act. And that, or that pain that I see in I've worked with people for 16, 17 years now, and you have a long time as well. In the collective conditioning, that fact that women are inherently evil, manipulative, and wrong and sinful, and it is because of them that our world has all of this sin,
Yeah.
that doesn't have no effect.
No,
Yeah.
it's very much ingrained into the psyche. And, you know, epigenetically speaking, when we feel into the time of the witch trials
Yeah.
and what women must have been fearing, and that lives on in most Western European descent women's DNA
Yeah.
for having any inkling of being a healer or a seer, someone who works with birth,
Yeah.
herbs. Yeah.
Yeah, to just think the work that I do, the work that you do, anyone listening who works in herbal medicine or who's a doula or who's intuitive or who even does coaching, maybe
Mhm,
even meteorologists, we would probably all be hung or
mhm,
burned,
mhm.
have our lives taken for our natural goddess given gifts. It is wild to think, and how many of our ancestors did go through that.
Yeah.
Right, in the ancestral line, in the lineage. I know I've done some past life regression work, and there is a lot around my chest and my neck, and I had vivid images coming out about being hung and burned for speaking my truth. And this lifetime, I was given that same gift of my voice and my articulation and my ability to share a message and a medicine encoded in. And I know that it's healing those lifetimes where I was not able to, or I was literally murdered for doing so. And this is the kind of stuff that sounds crazy to people who have not experienced it or who is not in this world. But anyone that's listening that can maybe be open enough to hear this and think about what gets passed down through our lineage and imagining what happened, if you don't know epigenetically, but epigenetically, it's something very interesting to look into, what your great great grandmother experienced if she was raped or murdered or abused or neglected in her cellular DNA, in her nervous system is encoded that trauma, which gets passed down subconsciously, energetically, biologically through the DNA line. And whether you're conscious to it or not, those things do have an effect in your lives.
Yes.
What have you seen with that, Kate? I know that you do this deep, deep work. How does this show up for people?
I work a lot with what I refer to as the womb mysteries, but really it's about the red thread, and the red thread being your ancestral lineage from your mother's line. Knowing that this line in particular, of course, both your mother and father biologically are giving you instructions within your genetic code. But I work a lot with the mother line and working with healing around the trauma that has been passed through generation to generation. Some traumas we know about because we're able to ask our grandparents, some that we don't because it's so many generations further back that are imprinted, and some that are never talked about, that are unspoken because of shame or other reasons. In different generations, of course, certain things would not have ever come up because it was detrimental to your livelihood, your ability to function in society. And so our generation now is doing a lot of this clearing work. And so I see that a lot with women who come to me or come into our ceremonies or come to do womb work, that there is this deeply known but not consciously need to cleanse and release and heal in many ways, to break a pattern of self-sabotage, of not valuing oneself, because this is all linked into not being safe, not having a voice.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, when we start to do that deeper work and see those threads and see I say the codes or the corruptions in the field, it's amazing when even without knowing exactly what it is sometimes when people shift that energy and reclaim or remember the truth of who they really are and the divinity of their soul, how everything in the external world just like tick 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 checks into place and everything shifts. It's really just amazing to get to witness that, and also amazing to think that most people don't know about this, and you're never going to hear it from your doctor. You're not going to hear it in mainstream places. That's why having conversations like this is so important because there's so much more to this world and to this life and to our bodies and to our energy and to the co-creation of our reality than meets the eye.
Yeah. It's the truth. This is the other side of the seen and the unseen. This is it.
Yeah.
And it's so influential in our lives.
Let's go even deeper. So, what is the divine feminine for anyone listening who's like, what is she? Well, okay, I'm here, I'm listening, talked about some religion stuff, still not sure. How would you describe or articulate the
Mhm.
divine feminine?
I like to look at it from sacred geometry of the Vesica Pisces. And
Mhm.
so, for those that aren't familiar with the Vesica Pisces, it's two circles that intersect one another in their exact center. And if you are Christian, you might have noticed a fish on the back of people's cars. That fish is the mandorla, or the actual center of that Vesica Pisces. And the Vesica Pisces is essentially bringing in two halves to create a third, a whole in the center point. And what I view as the divine feminine is one half of that, or one of those circles. And I view the divine masculine as the other. And when placing them both together and interlocking them, you have a divine third. And you can look at that in many ways: the maiden, the mother, the crone, the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost. There's always this triplicity at play in spirituality. And the third, the sacred third, is union. And so divine feminine I look at as a in integral counterpart in when we're walking our sovereign spiritual path. It is recognizing the feminine aspect, the lunar aspect, the the more yin aspect of spirituality, whereas the masculine side is recognizing the more solar yang aspect. And so the divine feminine brings in the balance. It brings in this beautiful equanimity and wholeness when it comes into the picture. So I always looked at it as part of a whole and not separate from the divine masculine. And so it's really about bringing in a full picture. I hope that makes
Mm.
sense.
It absolutely makes sense, and I love it's a very macro and beautifully articulated. And if we can go even more micro, how does I get a lot of women are asking, well, how do you? I want to be more in my feminine. How do I tap into my feminine? How do I
Mhm.
know if I'm in my feminine? Like I'm operating. Most of us have been conditioned to operate through the masculine, through the doing and the strategy and the thinking and the processing, the penetrating, the making it happen. Let's talk about
Mhm.
what the more tangible aspects of the feminine energy and how to step into that, how to embody that, how to play with those energies.
Mm. I love to look at this from the perspective of cyclical nature versus linear nature. And this, if you're in your bleeding years, some of your listeners would likely be, you can look directly at your cycle. Your menstrual cycle is the cycle of the moon, it is the cycle of the seasons, it is the life cycle. There is a innate life, death, and rebirth within that cycle. And there's always a pinnacle and then a descent. And to be in our feminine asks of us to get comfortable with cyclical nature, to give spaciousness for there to be time for rest, and for there also to be time to rise and be out in the world. And so the first place I start with my students is always coming into, where are you avoiding your cyclical nature? And even if you're not in your bleeding years, you're cyclical by being made of water and being connected to the lunar rhythms, which move waters through our body. And the moon is the exact mirror of our internal cyclical clock. And so when we start there, we start to give more spaciousness for there to be a dark time, the dark moon, the bleed, and for there to be the expansive time, the ovulation, the full moon. And when we're living in rhythm with that, we're coming away from this competitive, penetrating, aggressive, like have to get to the top energy all the time. Because, gosh, that's exhausting
Yeah.
and creates burnout, creates this inability to sustain and a lot of discomfort, generally speaking.
Yeah. Yeah, I always see that a lot in women that are experiencing burnout or adrenal fatigue or so many menstrual issues, fertility issues, women not recognizing that we are not men. I know society wants you to think that a woman can be a man and a man can be a woman, and spoiler alert, that is not possible um, at all. Maybe you want to debate that, but I think you probably agree with that. And we are not small men. We are not men. We are not built like men. We are not meant to operate like men. We are not on the same cycles as men. We are not men. And society wants to put us into the man box and make us think that our value is from achieving and accomplishing and making more money and being a boss babe and doing it all and being strong and fit and going to CrossFit and all the different things. And women have been pinned against men and made to compete with each other and with men. But the truth is that we are not. We are very different. Men and women are extremely different. And the way that, in my opinion and experience, that we unlock our truest and greatest potential and alignment is to live in accordance to the fact that we are biologically wired as women with a womb, or regardless if you have a womb or have had it removed. If you were born with a womb and a cycle and the genetics of a woman, you are on a total different life cycle
Mhm.
than that of men.
Yeah, you have an infradian and a circadian rhythm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like that how men show up as the sun. I love this analogy. Men show up as the sun each day, pretty much the same. Women show up like the moon. Every day it's a little different. We're in a different phase and it's always changing. And isn't it amazing that women know nothing? We're taught nothing about our menstrual cycle except that if we want to stop it, we take the pill, and when we're on it, to plug it up. And that's really all we know.
And that's arguably wrong.
Yeah, I think it's very wrong. But
Yeah.
let's go deeper. What do women need to know in this regard about about the cycle or about the cyclical nature? What are some, and this is time for everyone to listen, like what are some wisdom gold nuggets that you want women to know about this?
Well, first of all, that you're very powerful in these times they tell you that you're not and that you should be popping Advil and going out and doing. If we're living in relation and right relation with the cycles that our bodies are speaking to us and taking the space when it's needed, our intuition strengthens, our inner sight strengthens, our decision making gets very clear. We're not in this limbo of, what am I doing with my life? Where is my meaning? It's right there because you've made space for it. And so it's not a secret, but a lot of people miss it because it's so easy to just be on this trajectory of always doing. But when you start to really be in relation with the quietude and the sacredness of that time, there's going to be an opening that happens because creation starts in the dark. And so that's when the big ideas can come and the big new changes and shifts that your life is asking for can be really clear. That there's no more of that confusion or going back and forth.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I find as a woman, And for all the women I work with, many women as well, that their menstrual cycle, your bleed is your body speaking to you. Some people have called it your report card. I don't really like that verbiage, but it is a direct mirror and a reflection into what's going on. And it's telling you if you have fibroids, or you have cystic ovaries, or you have endometriosis, adenomyosis, or infertility, any kind of amenorrhea, you're not bleeding, you're heavily bleeding, your body is telling you exactly what's happening. And there is always a mental, emotional, and physical component, those different layers. And so instead of getting your womb removed or popping birth control or injecting yourself with, morphine or Advil or one of these things to suppress the symptoms and to essentially tell your body to shut up
Yeah.
and just keep going, which
Yeah.
is deeply patriarchal, deeply masculine, just suppressing the feminine. It's the invitation to listen, to get in tune, because as you said, that time is where we're the most connected to ourselves and our intuition is the highest. And the veil between this level of reality and higher consciousness is the thinnest.
Mhm.
And so there's such an opportunity there for anyone listening who is struggling with the cycle and some symptoms to get so curious and tune into the body and listen to what's being spoken through it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's many ways that we can start to work with this on a really granular level. If we're running our own business, and I'm sure there's quite a few entrepreneurs that are listening, we can look at this as a reframe for how we run our entire business. We can look to our follicular phase for the time where we're going to be, making new contacts and getting marketing ready for when we're in our ovulatory phase. And then at that point, we're going to be out in the world. Perhaps if we're in seeking funding for our company, we're pitching during that time, or we're doing podcast episodes, or we're being out in the world. And then as we come into the luteal, we come more internal. And this is a time where we're perhaps doing our accounting and our bookkeeping. And then we go into the rest phase during the bleed. And this is game changing. I mean, this is literally the formula that changed my life from being a tech CEO, moving into becoming a full time priestess. That
Mm.
was, in a big way, a key that switched everything for me because I realized how this was not present in the world. It was just ignored. And like you said, we never even learned about these things in school. How wild is that?
So you mean we're not meant to be stuffed into little fluorescent boxes with no windows, working 9 to 5, plus traveling in traffic every single day of the month as women? Really? Really? And it's not that you can't. That's the thing. Yes, ladies, you can do it all. You can fast and you can eat the keto diet and you can do the CrossFit and you can go and have the boss babe job and make the $1 million and you can crush it. Absolutely. And report back to me if your body feels good. Report back to me if you're fertile. Report back to me if you feel amazing. Report back to me if you have a libido. Report back to me if your soul and your heart feel fulfilled. I have never seen it. Not
Mm.
once in the 18 years. I have just not seen it. Am I wrong, Kate? Or would you say, am I being too extreme?
From what I've experienced, and I've spent a lot of years working with entrepreneurs specifically that have moved out of being in the traditional grind, which many of us were in at some point.
Yeah.
I would agree that it's really hard to find that. I wouldn't say it's impossible, but I've never seen it either. Because it is trying to force us into something that doesn't really fit, doesn't really work.
Yeah.
It's the same idea of taking the pill or, being shown this is the way forward when, it might be for some. It
Yeah.
might be for some. And at the same time, we're speaking of sovereignty here. It might also not be for some.
How
Yeah.
do you define sovereignty, Kate?
It is being whole unto oneself without having external influence controlling the outcome of your life.
Mm.
That it is about it coming from deep within your original source, your true essence, your authentic you that denotes what life looks like. And
Wow.
it's not an easy path to be on. I know you know.
I know you know as well. It is not an easy path. For me, there's just no other way because no path is easy. The
Hmm.
path that's been laid out of the 9 to 5, work the grind, make the money, have all of that, that's not an easy path either. And so it's about choosing, well, no path is really that easy, but what's the one that gives the greatest outcome that you're seeking? What's the one that feels true for you? And the path that we speak about, we both run successful businesses, work on our own time, work with our soulmate clients. Like I can safely say you and I have cracked the code.
Hmm.
And I want people to know that it is possible. Like you and I are great, but we're not that special. Not no one's that special, right? It's not like
Yeah.
it's only you that can do it, or it's only me, or we're so different. Like, because you work with so many entrepreneurs and you've helped so many women achieve this as well. And as have I. And that's what I want people to know is that it's possible for them. And
Yeah.
maybe not just possible, maybe even probable, maybe even inevitable. So let's talk to that for people that are like, "Oh, well, it's because Kate is so special and so amazing," which she is. She absolutely is. And it's available for you too.
Yeah.
So let's talk more about that.
Yeah.
I'll let you take off from there.
When it comes to letting sovereignty be your guide, of course it's available for everyone. What is the hard part is getting really clear on how it's going to look for you. Because our tendency in society today is to look outside of ourselves for guidance on how life should look. In the advent of Instagram and TikTok and all the rest, we're always being inundated by what our life should, could look like. But what the hard part is really distilling, and this is why it's important to take that spaciousness at the dark time, at the dark moon, is to have real clarity of what it is you truly want. What is it you truly want? And it might not be living on a farm, taking care and scooping chicken shit every day. It might not be that, but it could look really good on Instagram.
Yeah.
So the first place to start is to get really true with yourself, really honest with yourself. What is it I truly want? What feels sovereign and in alignment with my authentic truth, my codes of what I'm here to do, how I'm here to serve?
Mm.
But that is the hardest part.
That is. And so I've been, I play with words a lot. And I used to feel like I used to ask myself, what do I really want? And then I went all deep in the rabbit hole around the word want. And even there felt like a little bit of separation from truth. And so I started to ask myself the question of more than what I want, or apart from the want, what is meant for me? What is the deepest truth for me? And that helped unlock so much in in realizing it's not separate to me. This path for me, it's the path that I'm meant for. And I truly believe that I believe in the soul. I believe that we are souls that have embodied onto this earth in the specific bodies, families, situations that we're in for a specific reason. And I love that you started off this conversation with the word remembering, because more than finding and seeking and figuring it out, it's like removing all of the things that are in the way, all the conditioning, and coming back to remembering who you are and why you're here. And then that's the hardest part. But once you have that, the how becomes way easier. Hire a coach, go to one of Kate's events, come hang out with me. Like there are so many people that have figured it out. And then it's about, I believe, having the courage to bravely do the thing.
Yeah.
What else do you see? Once people have women and have gone into that and they're doing the work and they've realized and they remember, what do you feel like the people who actually accomplish it and actually embody sovereignty? What's the gold that they have that makes them different? What does it actually take for women to achieve that?
It's to walk away from the security of the what was.
Mm.
That's usually the thing that is hooked in. It's the secure job or a secure partnership that's no longer in alignment. It's a security that seems secure, but actually is detrimental to our freedom. And that's not to say we need to walk away from our relationships or our jobs. In fact, I find that traditional jobs can be the best investors in our new career path for some time. But
Yes.
there comes this threshold point where there has to be the bravery to leap. And those that I have witnessed make it know when to time that leap. And it's usually when you're most against the idea of leaping. That's usually the time
Mm. Why do you think that is?
because it's so close to being on the precipice of the potential being gone. So long as we have the potential, we're able to sit and be like, oh, but we're on our way there. But the moment we take the leap, the potential is gone. So there's a possibility that it's not going to work. And that's so scary.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe that. I'm glad you said that because that is what I have seen to be the greatest diminisher. What if I fail?
Mhm.
And then when I ask somebody, well, what would that mean for you? That answer, okay, so everyone listening, and you have this idea, you have this thing, you know you're meant to do, but there's something holding you back. And maybe if fear of failure is the thing for you, like, but what if I fail? Okay, let's talk about that. If you fail, what does that mean about you? Most of the time, that answer, once you clear that, is the thing that will set you free. And it always comes down to the same things. I'm not worthy. I'm not deserving. I'm not good enough. I can't do it.
Mhm.
I'm a fraud. It's always a limiting belief, which, as we know, is always rooted in fear, which is rooted in lies.
Yeah.
So, what's the truth that you want women to hear? Women that are listening to this, if imagine, Kate, that you had a megaphone that spoke directly to the hearts, the wombs, the souls, the mind of every single woman on this entire planet. And you get to recode them. Like your message gets to recode their cellular biology and shift the trajectory of their lives. No pressure.
None.
But
Distill that into a sentence. Mm.
it can be more than a sentence. You can totally riff on this.
One of the beautiful things about opening up to the feminine aspect and the power within it is that you start to understand the absolute innate power that is within the generative force of creation. And that creation does not happen without the feminine in her power. And that is innate within all of us. And if we are here to create something, it is innate within us. It is just what we're here to do. And I think remembering that our codes are of creation, we hold creation codes. Just remember that.
So good. It is so good. S- I used to have a belief that I'm not creative. I don't know where that came from. I think it's because my brother was one of my brothers is very artsy and like creative in the very, like artsy way. And I thought that that's what creative was. And I didn't realize all the other ways that creation is. And I was obviously, I knew nothing about anything. And I was on birth control and disconnected from my feminine and all the things. I didn't even realize that my being, my vessel, my body is where life comes from. On this,
Yeah.
it is the thing that births beings. And as a woman, beyond just our physical body, our energy, what we stand for, what we represent, what we are on this planet, is the creative force. We birth realities, we birth businesses, we birth babies, we birth. So innately, we are that. And for any men listening, you are the penetrative force, you are the pollinator, you are creative by nature.
Yeah.
And if we can tap into that and realize, oh, that is what we're literally on this planet to do, and if we're convicted in that, all the illusion of the fear and the limiting beliefs can just take a back seat. They can fall away because they are just not rooted in truth.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
I want to go into, I want people so one of the things, you give great nuggets, we give great nuggets. And many of the people that are listening, I know a lot of your community, mine as well, are entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
And it's often sometimes really hard to see the path of like, well, okay, they're doing it. And so many people are probably seeing your business and thinking, well, that's exactly what I want to do. And I know that you have offerings and one-on-one and group and a beautiful platform and an amazing Instagram and you run these retreats. If you could peel back the layers or peel back, behind the scenes of, well, how did you build this? Could you walk us through? Would you walk us through if you want to reveal some of your behind the scenes secrets? Maybe not secrets, but what was that path like for you?
Mm. Well, my first company was when I was 12,
Yes.
and it was a candle business, beeswax candles. And, you know, I sold them at craft markets, but there was this hit of what it was to create some form of sovereignty in my life at that young age. So that was like an imprint for me personally. But what it made me realize is like, oh, I can create something and then I can exchange it for something of value. And so when I started creating the feminine code and what now lives as the feminine code priestess school and everything that comes around that, it started with a fusion of my experience. I had this deeply devoted sacred feminine spiritual path, and I had spent years in tech and, in two separate worlds. And I thought, well, is there a way to marry these? And so for listeners, looking at what has your experience been like in your life? So my first way to marry them was creating what I call the Feminine Code Business School. And it was weaving the feminine with the masculine inside of a business school. Everything I'd learned in business, in my MBA and my BBA, running businesses, I plunked it into a program and then brought in all of the sacred feminine wisdom with it. And that was the creation of my first product that evolved over time. That was in 2019. So over time, it evolved. And that's really, I think, the basis of where we can begin is we find what is true for us at this time, bring that to life, and then see how it will change, compost, decline, and then what will evolve out of it.
Mm.
And so where I am today, I'm in another precipice moment of growth. And probably in some years, this will also start its descent and will need to compost and rebirth in another way. That's the beauty of the feminine. We're
Yeah.
okay with the death and the endings so that there can be a rebirth for what's new. And I think that's a really important thing for entrepreneurs to remember is that we don't need to keep growing the same thing over time. I know you've done some rebirths of your own with your
Yeah.
business too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
This is so good. Oh, everything you bring up, I'm so happy. I could go off on a million tangents in every direction you're speaking. One of the things that I see often when people are starting their business is they're like, I need to know exactly what it's going to look like for the next 10 years or I'm not going to do it. Like, but I don't know every single little detail along the way. Like, babe, you don't have to. And in fact, the thought that you have to is limiting you from anything. My business, I started off health life coaching when I was 18. And just because I had always been a coach, my mom had to take out two lines all throughout high school because people were always calling me with their problems. And when I realized that I can make money doing that, I started charging people $100 an hour. My first client was a 55-year-old woman that I was a manager at my gym. It was great. I realized I can get paid for this. And then it morphed a little bit into some like health products and health coaching with some life coaching, and then went deep into the whole holistic health world. And I got certified as a practitioner. My background's also in psychology. So I did a little, combo thing there because I didn't see those worlds being bridged. And then when I graduated from my holistic nutrition school, the next year they brought me on to teach the business course. And I thought, oh, yeah, I guess I have had a business since I was 18. It was almost 8 years at that time. So I taught the business course and I taught that a few semesters and I realized it was so incomplete for what people actually needed to be sovereign. So I went off on my own and created the business school for holistic practitioners, never thinking I would get into business coaching. But I didn't even think I would get into health coaching. I just learned it because it just kind of happened. And that's how it's gone. And now I'm mostly full time in business coaching, have some one on one clients on the side. And from there, retreats popped up and events popped up and speaking gigs popped up. And I couldn't have planned all of that.
No.
But that's the beauty of the feminine. It's
Yeah.
allowing the unfolding. And yes, it takes releasing the control mechanism that so many of us have developed through trauma as a child. It really is a whole mind, body, spirit approach to life and business. And yeah, it takes courage and bravery and some surrender, but it is just the most rewarding thing to witness life unfolding and realizing that you don't have to control it all, anything at all.
What a relief.
What a relief. You mean I don't have to you mean I'm not God and I don't have to control every single thing in my life and business and the world around me? Yeah. Take a breath and let it go.
Mm, so
Yeah.
freeing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the unknown is the beauty. Yeah.
Yeah, and yes, it's scary. If for sure, especially if you have developed your safety around control, right? Around but that is the clenched energy. That is the constriction. Everything has to be exactly the way I want it to, or I can't do anything. Teeth clench, jaw clench, grinding of the teeth, digestive issues, body pain. It can get you so far, and it's just not fully serving the greatness that is possible for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well put.
Mm. I remember you went to Egypt a few years ago. I remember being blown I remember your Instagram for anyone who is not following Kate, you have to. It's a must. I'm forcing you, commanding you. No, it's really an invitation. It's like watching a a a a world that is different. It's like being transported into this magical realm that is so beautiful, and I just love your world. And I remember that trip that you went to Egypt, and I think it's important to talk about it. I would love for you to share about that trip, your retreats in general, as information for people, but also to show people what's possible because what you have created and what you facilitate is so incredible. So let's tell us a little bit more about that.
Mm. Egypt was really special at the time I went to because it was during the time where the rest of the world was really locked down and Egypt was open. And that experience was transformative. I went actually twice within about 18 months. And being at these sacred sites without tourists around, I think is probably something that will happen once in my lifetime to be able to go into some of these temples where they're normally flooded with thousands and thousands of tourists every single day, even in low season. Uh, to really be in the presence of these sacred sites, these ancient templates being held in these sacred sites was really, really powerful. Um, that trip really opened up a lot of my eyesight as well. I'm looking at some of the sacred temples, for instance, and I speaking to the divine feminine. Many of the temples that I went to were those of the divine feminine goddesses, and when we look at some of the sacred sites there, it's always really interesting to see that the Temple of Isis at Philae, where it stands now, is actually on a different island than it was years ago
Mm.
before the dam was built. These sites were all built on very particular sacred locations, ley lines, if you will. And when the dam was built, it flooded. And so, brick by brick, the entire temple was moved to another island. And what remains on the original island is just a gate. And it's not legal to go to the original island, which is also interesting.
Very.
Um, but the gate still stands there. And if you have a brave enough guide, they'll take you there. And to stand on the site where the original temple was and to see, broken fragments of the building and clay pots and the stones, it was really something that was very eye opening symbolically as well because the divine feminine, this temple was moved from its sacred site. And I would imagine that the engineers that built that dam would have known that it would have flooded over these temples before they built it.
Mm.
So it makes you think
Mm.
and wonder a little bit, why these things happen.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know why I felt called to share that particular part of the story, but I felt it was important around the divine feminine aspect and her kind of being pushed to the side or forgotten in some way. And I very much feel that this is a time of her rising.
Yeah. What I got from that story as well was potentially intentional systemic destruction,
Mm.
but not enough to destroy it, but enough to distort it. Like it's like, oh, it's still the temple, but it's not. It was moved and it was replaced, and it's not on the right lines that it was meant to be, but it's still there. And that's in a way representative of women today. We are women, we look like women, sometimes we act like women, but there's this distortion, right? And even when we're talking about the moon cycles, we're meant to have 13 months in a year. We're meant to have lunar months. And even our calendar distorts us and removes us from the natural cycles. Most women don't even realize if they're bleeding with the moon or not. We're so out of sync. And I believe that this world ha- it has been systemically shifted just enough where it's not so noticeable, but enough where it's a distortion in the field. And the women, well, men too, but the women are really affected by that. And
Absolutely.
it is the time for the divine feminine rising. And I'm going to circle back to what you said right in the beginning. It doesn't mean separate to men. It's not where women are rising and down with the men. It's not that, again, very distorted, corrupt feminism. It's bringing into the divine union. So maybe we touch on that a little bit. What do you see possible? Like, why is this work? What is the why of your work? What is the end goal? What are you envisioning for what's possible for humanity?
When the feminine remembers and remembers the power that is within this archetype, the archetypal feminine, when that is remembered and then lived out, embodied, we will have a very different way of seeing the world. We will have a very different way of politics playing out, of wars, of all of this distortion that we see in our world. If the feminine is in her power, she is clear. And there isn't spaciousness for that to happen because there is an accountability that is being held. I always love hearing about the grandmothers that counseled the world. If we had a council of grandmothers, would there be war? Definitely not.
Mm,
Would there be starving children? Definitely not.
yeah.
And so the feminine is about meeting, because there's a lot of beauty within the masculine too, not the patriarchal system that is skewed in a very negative and toxic way that we're experiencing now. But the masculine holds so much beauty too and power. And when those are met in unity, in a healthy unity, we can really have the creative force, the generative force of where things are moving forward from a place of love rather than a place of separation. So
Mm.
that is my hope for humanity, whether we'll see it in our lifetime. I don't know.
We
But
got work to
we're
do,
damn well doing what we can.
right? We got work to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
What a beautiful vision, right? Like everyone listening, what a beautiful vision. How does that show up in the micro in your own body, in your own relationships with your family, with your partner, with your kids, in your work? Like what we're alluding to here and what we're tapping into here is the innate energy that emanates throughout everything. And there is my message to the world is always that there's just so much more available for us when we live in alignment with who we really are and why we're here, and we bring in these divine energies and anchor them within ourselves and each other. The world that we co-create is what I call heaven on earth. It's bringing in the golden age or the new era, however you want to say it. It's just s- it's just the world that we know is possible in our hearts and that we get to co-create together. And so I wanna give a huge thank you to you for the devotional and the sacred commitment to this work and the way that you show up in the world and what you offer to so many people and the hearts that you transform and the lives that you change, because it's the most needed work, and so many of us see you and love you and appreciate you, and it's such an honor to get to have this conversation with you.
Oh, wow. Thank you for you and for showing up in this way. And I echo all of that back to you because of the work that you are doing. And even bringing this conversation to the forefront is so needed, and thank you for initiating all in all the ways that you do.
Mm.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Is there anything that hasn't been said that you really want to say? Or if there's anything, obviously, we're going to put in how to get in contact with Kate, the best way to reach her. Absolutely connect with her, follow her on Instagram, share her offerings. We're going to get all of that. Is there anything we missed?
Hmm. Hmm. What I'm hearing is don't forget that you're part of great nature. And meaning that that unity that we speak of, this masculine, feminine, archetypal energies, we're also part of this one organism of great nature that we're living in. And that a lot of the questions that we have are therefore found in nature, and that God can be found there, goddess found there, and that that is also within us. And if we commune with great nature in whatever way we do that, whether it's swimming in the ocean or forest bathing or sitting with our back against a tree that feels really special, that we can remember that the divine is all around us all the time. Mm.
Aho, amen. Beautifully said. And with that, friends, we love you. We appreciate you. We thank you. Stay sovereign. Connect with Kate, and we'll see you next time.